The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on our live shows.
Broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of This Week in Guns is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to This Week in Guns. This show is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network and Patriot Patch Company.
And the show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host tonight, Sean Herron, and it's my pleasure to introduce our guest tonight. We got two panelists sitting in the same room. I mean, I could read their resumes, but it'd probably take me the rest of the show. So I'll just say this. You know them. You love them. They're the guys behind the Student of the Gun podcast. It's Paul and Jared Markle. What's up, guys? How are you?
Thank you for having us on. I'm the Paul part of that.
I am Jared. Thank you for having us on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Love having you guys on. I always know it's going to be a good time. Let's get right into it and talk about Tennessee governor supports constitutional carry bill. Came right out and said it. I don't know why suddenly I got an accent. That was weird. But he announced his support for legislation to allow residents to carry guns without a permit. His support would apply to those 21 years old and up, and to both open and concealed carry in non-restricted areas. I would like to point out it also imposes stricter penalties for those who steal or come to illegally possess a gun. So they would increase the penalty for theft of firearm to a felony, provide a sentencing enhancement for theft of firearm in a car, increase the minimum sentence for theft of a firearm from 30 to 180 days, increase the sentence for unlawful possession by violent felons and felony drug offenders, possession of a handgun by a felon, and unlawfully providing a handgun to a juvenile or allowing a juvenile to possess a handgun. I think it's great. I like this kind of concealed carry. I think it's a great thing. What do you guys think?
Oh, my big question is, though, the allow a juvenile to possess a handgun.
Yeah.
Unlawful. How is it an unlawful possession and unlawfully providing a handgun to a juvenile? Okay. So I'm thinking like gang stuff there, because if you're a dad and you take your teenage kids, or heck, even your 12-year-olds or whatever, to the range, and you let them shoot your Ruger Mark 2, 3, 4, whatever mark we're on. I'm not sure what mark we're on now. Probably 4. We're not on Mark 5 yet. Right?
I don't even know.
I don't know if we're on Mark 5 yet. But okay, so whatever. I mean, I just want to make sure it's not one of those, because I know some of these states are like, if a juvenile touches a gun, everyone in the world will die. So you gotta watch out for that. But the main thing that I'm all about is this crazy thing called liberty and understanding rights and property rights, and guns are property. And if you have to ask permission from your government, then it's not a right. It's a privilege. If you have to ask permission, if you have to give them, if you have to pay ransom for your rights, they're not really rights. and let's face it, if you have to go to the head law enforcement officer and say, "Please, sir, may I have your permission to carry a gun?"
No,
what?
peasant.
Please, sir. And he says, "Yes, but you must first pay me, 30 shilling or 50 sterling or whatever." And you're like, if you're paying the king 50 sterling for the permission to carry a gun, it ain't a right. Sorry. It's a privilege.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. And I want to expound upon what Dad was just saying. And for those of you that didn't know, Professor Paul is Jared's dad. So what he was saying, to expound upon that, us as a gun culture, if we're going to talk about politicians that we don't like because they don't support gun control, then we also need to be there for the politicians, the governors, etc., who are supporting gun legislation or expanding liberty, I'll say, because gun legislation is actually a law.
A return to liberty.
I was reading the story and I was like, well, I mean, why does there need to be legislation to allow people to carry guns? Because isn't that the default?
Well, yeah, keep means to own, and bear means to carry.
I looked on Oxford English Dictionary at those two words to see, because it gives you a list of what they meant at specific times. And nowhere in time that's recorded, did they mean something different?
Well, did you look up the keep as a noun?
Yeah,
because that's a big thing.
No.
A castle where they lock
Right.
people.
Yeah. No, verb to keep and to
keep
bear.
as a verb, not as a noun.
Yeah.
Because you could be locked in a keep.
Yep. Like the word nice, for instance, way back when, it didn't mean nice what it means today. It meant a woman of nefarious nature.
Really?
Yeah.
I like nice women.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
You know, this one kind of does concern me. Clearly, I want permitless and constitutional carry, right? Like that. I 100% agree with you guys on that. That last line kind of makes me a little bit nervous. What if a juvenile breaks into your house and takes a gun? I mean, depending on how this would be written, because again, and Paul, you said it before the show, this has not been filed. It's not an actual bill. It's just the governor saying he would support one. But what if that happens? Would you be allowing a juvenile to possess a handgun? Are there storage requirements that they're going to jam into place? And if you don't follow those, you're responsible and guilty.
Yeah, you got to be careful with the storage requirements laws. Everyone thinks that storage requirement laws are reasonable. That's for people that don't actually use guns as defensive tools.
Right.
That's for like, I don't know, Europeans or whatever. But people are like, well, it's only reasonable to unload it and lock it in a safe at all times. Yeah, but you don't understand what that thing's for, bro. I'm not going to shoot birds with it. And how many times do we need to see surveillance footage of 1, 2, 3? There was just a story, and I didn't add it to the show notes yet, but of a home invasion where 8 armed individuals busted through a door.
If you can't do it with 2, you can't do it at all.
Yeah, it's like that guy at the gun counter said.
6 or whatever he
You
said.
can't get it done with the first couple shots. You're not going to get it done. So don't even worry about how many rounds that thing holds. Okay.
I mean, just creepy Uncle Joe it and rack a shotgun. Scariest noise
Well, you
anyone's
get
ever heard.
scared, just point it at the door and there you go. You know, it's a felony in a box.
Yep. I know we're preaching. I know we're preaching to the choir, but study proves that mass shootings are not becoming more common. Comes to us from Bearing Arms, and apparently there was a study done at Northeastern University, and they said that school shootings are not on the rise over the past decade and remain rare events. So James Allen Fox, the Littman Family Professor of Criminology, Law, and Public Policy at Northeastern, and Emma Friedel, who is currently completing her doctorate at the school, revealed that their research indicates school shootings remain incredibly rare events. Their findings, which are set to be published later this year, indicate that shooting incidents which involve students have actually declined since the 90s. The research team determined that on average mass murders occur between 20 and 30 times per year. And about one of those incidents on average takes place at a school. They said the rate of students killed in school shootings is only a quarter of what it was in the early 90s. And they end it, James Allen Fox says, there is not an epidemic of school shootings. We know this, right? Like we see these numbers, we see the statistics. We know that we live in the safest time that we ever have as a civilized society. But there's been multiple reports that I've seen coming out kind of saying this exact same thing. What are your thoughts here, guys?
I'll go first. If anybody who believes that there's more, there's actually a weird correlation. If you look at like prior to 1994, ask people, say, name one school shooting prior to 1994, and they scratch their heads and they're like, and I'm not saying that there wasn't one, but how many people can name one? And they're like,
we didn't have the level of media that we have today.
Right. So not only that, but you didn't get hammered with it nonstop. Right. The worst, one of the worst school shootings on record took place 4 years, 99, 5 years after the Clinton Gun-Free Schools Act.
The crime bill.
Yeah, well, the crime bill and the Gun-Free Schools Act, the worst school shooting on record, the one that the liberals love to hang their hats on, Columbine, actually happened after the Gun-Free Schools Act. So you'd say, well, if these laws are keeping us safe, why did that happen 5 years? They had a whole 5 years to figure it out, and it still happened. But yeah, and of course we had, well, I guess it was probably right around 90. We moved into this 24-hour news cycle world.
Yeah.
And that's when we started getting beaten over the head constantly, nonstop by, these things.
Yeah, I have an exercise that I perform all the time, and it has been pretty dang effective. When I teach medical classes, and whenever I do so, I talk about, the mainstream media wants us to believe that this is an epidemic and that it's happening all the time. But how many people in this room right now have ever been victimized or knew someone who was victimized by a mass killing? And in classes, I've never once, hundreds of students, never once had anybody raise their hand. And I live in Colorado, so we had STEMS, we've had Columbine, we've had Aurora, and still, in all the classes I've taught here, not one has ever raised their hand. I did it on a show on We Like Shooting not too long ago. I did the same exercise, and we got one email of someone who had been a couple of their friends had been killed in a mass killing. So it just goes to show, like, all those different people, and I mean, no one's ever been affected, even in Colorado. Jared?
Yeah, so this is it's interesting to me because I clicked through to the links to actually find the link to the study itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the study itself was actually published in early 2018. And so my question was immediately, why is it taken so long to get to us? I've never seen this in my life before. And so now published recently by Bearing Arms, I think was the source story that we found it on. Mm-hmm. And so why is it taken so long for things like this to get out in the media, when if a school shooting happens, it's immediately the next day and the following 7 days, and then the following month, it's just pounded in our head. And so I urge you guys that are listening, go click through the show notes. I assume you guys publish the show notes for them to get to the links.
Yep.
So click through those, go read this study, because it's actually really interesting. I'm a data guy. I like numbers. So maybe it's not interesting to you, but it is to me. And just kind of fill your brain with knowledge, because there's a ton here that you could use to when you're talking to your friends that might be a little bit more leaning towards the gun control side. You can actually cite facts here and send them this entire study.
You're assuming that your gun control friends are going to be swayed by facts.
Right.
Well,
there are people that are on the fence, though. They don't really understand it.
The FBI does an annual report called the Uniform Crime Report.
Yep, love it.
And it's always it's like a full year after. So, like, when it turns 2020, it's only the 2018 study. But the fact of the matter is, it's available online. You paid for it, and you can cite it. And that's where we are easily able to slam the lies of assault weapons are killing everyone and the whole world is going to die. And, Joe Biden said 150 million Americans have died from gun violence in the last 7 years or 13 years, or I don't know, whatever. Pretty sure 150 million didn't. It probably would have been a news story.
50% of the country dies.
Yeah, half of the population is now dead. Thanos, 2020.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is it's so easy to refute that nonsense. You're like, here. They're like, well, what does the FBI know? They're lying to support the and if you say, okay, so you believe that the FBI is lying to support conservative policies? Yeah, because that's what they're known for.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always do that. So you say, like, more people were killed by being beaten to death with hands and fists than were killed with rifles.
Yeah. Let's see, hammers, bats, and blunt objects, like a little bit over 1,300 deaths. In the United States, 2018, 297 people died via rifle.
Yeah, and that's not even ARs. I mean, that could be a Ruger 1022.
Yep, that's all rifles. It's a statistical anomaly. It's a blip. It's nothing. To those 297 people and their families, it's everything.
Yeah,
right. Well, in mind that, like,
many people died of medical malpractice in that same time frame.
So many more,
or misdiagnosis, or bad prescription drugs and so forth. The fact of the matter is, it's all perception, and the battle that we're fighting. And when that's why I tell my people, I'm like, look, you're the choir. I can't go to your church, your school, your whatever. I can't go to your family gathering and correct people's misconceptions, but you can. And often it's really not that hard. Or you can even ask them, you're like, well, really, how many people do you think died from AR-15s? And they're like, it's got to be thousands. Really? Let's refer to the FBI uniform crime statistics.
Depends on where you're talking here.
Well,
we're talking about the people
that
are killed by military. Like, what's going on here? Something that we also, our side, I'll call it our side, actually runs into is the CNNs, the ABCs, etc. They occupy the brains and the minds of our families every single day. And so we have to combat against that. When we have things like this that show the truth, then we also have to bring up in conversation and not just hide from it. There's a lot of people that I know, myself included sometimes, that have dinners and Thanksgivings with families that might be on the fence or more leaning towards gun control. And we just avoid the conversation because we don't want to talk about it. When in reality, that's doing us a disservice, because then we're allowing the CNNs and the ABCs to rule that person's mind and convince them that these things are not, in fact, true.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I have a severe bias against any kind of news. I actually don't watch the news. I don't really pay attention to the news. If I see it maybe scrolling some social media thing, sometimes maybe 5% of the time I'll click through and check on it. And I live a pretty happy life because of it. I can't stand the 24-hour news cycle. I can't stand constantly being just inundated with everything that's supposed to be fearful. And I challenge people, like, go a week without the news. This show right here is the only news exposure that I get 100%. So I really have no idea what's going on in the country. And that's probably a stupid way to live. But man, it's a pretty happy way to live. And like, I'm aware of the coronavirus and I've done a little bit of research just because I'm interested in medical. But other than that, I really don't pay attention to a lot of stuff. And my life's pretty good. Yeah. So, everyone's panicking all the time. Maybe we just stop watching.
Yeah. I don't think that's a stupid way to live, because in reality, you're going to influence people more in your local community than you would across the country, because you're there in person. So by having a lack of news consumption that's outside of your immediate area, you're actually spending more time maybe focusing on what's there in your local community and how you can affect it there. Because that's really how we'll fix this, is if everybody paid attention to their local community and stopped worrying about things that are going on, not 100% of the things, because sometimes it does take a whole country to come together, like in Virginia at the Capitol or whatever. But the majority of things would be solved easier if we all just banded together in our communities and showed support for each other there.
Very well said. Clayton P in the chat said, "Are we going to have a rats debate? Sean's a hater." And I say, that's not true. That's a gross misrepresentation of my position. I'm not a hater at all. In fact, I carry them in my med kits. I just understand the pros and the cons, and I know how to use them, and I understand where they're strong and where they're not. Yeah. That's it.
Well, I was gonna talk to Clayton and say he's actually one of the Student of the Gun listeners.
Yeah.
And one of our members. And I was gonna tell him that it's okay. Sean's wrong sometimes.
That is also true. And Jared and I, we talked on the phone about rats a while back.
We did. Yeah.
But all right, next story. This one comes from very local to me, actually, very, very, very close. In fact, about a mile and a half from where I'm sitting right now. Off-duty officer kills robber that climbed into his car at a drive-through. I saw this in the news because someone local asked me about it. But yeah, so officer is off duty. He's done. It's late at night, or early Thursday morning. It was dark out, I believe. A guy hops in his car, says he's got a gun. Doesn't really say what happened after that, except for the officer fired one round, and I believe the dude was found dead.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Let's see. The officer was uninjured. Yes, he did fatally wound his attacker, and bada bing, bada boom. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
It's kind of reminds me of the old cliched, was it a Chuck Norris movie? I think it was a Chuck Norris movie. There have been a couple of movies where it's a cop bar, like in New York or Chicago or something. It's an off-duty cop bar, and two guys walk in and they're like, "Stick them up," and everyone in the bar pulls out a gun and points it at their heads. Which one was it? Was it a Chuck Norris movie?
I think it was a Naked Gun or something, wasn't
it?
Yeah,
or I don't know. No, it was an actual an action movie, and the guy walked in and they had him handcuffed or something on bar stools, and they're like, "Why are these guys here?" And they're like, "Well, we called the paddy wagon, an hour ago, and they thought we were joking, and they didn't send it, But those are actually based on stories from New York, back in like the 70s and the 80s. New York in the 70s was crazy. Oh, yeah. But yeah, and New York cops all had off-duty cop bars, and people walk in to stick up the cop bar, and they're like, "Yeah, that was a bad choice."
What are they? Critical error in the victim selection process.
Yeah, that's Masada critical error. So
the Carl's Jr. "Don't bother me, I'm eating," I guess, was never more valid than in this news story.
This, there's a lesson to be learned here for everybody listening is situational awareness. So if you're paying attention, if you're sitting at a drive-through, you're kind of like a sitting duck. You can't really go anywhere unless you have a Jeep or whatever, and you can get over the rocks that are next to you or the grass. Same thing with ATMs. Just don't go to ATMs.
Yeah.
Restaurants with drive-throughs, you can walk inside too.
Well, keep your car doors
maybe not
locked.
at 3:40 a.m.
Yeah, keep your car doors locked.
Yeah.
And something else, though, you guys, and this is a good thing for new concealed carriers or whatever. Just because you have a gun on you doesn't mean that the person who's about to rob you knows that and is scared. They're assuming you don't. So it doesn't. You're like, oh, I don't have to worry about anything. I have my gun on me. Well, yeah, but that guy doesn't know that. And he's not going to know that until he points a gun in your face. So if your first indication of trouble is a guy jumping in your car and pointing a gun at you,
yeah,
you probably should have your head up a little bit more. Yeah. So
definitely.
And I'm not going to quarterback this guy. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but my car doors are always locked if I'm inside the car.
Yeah.
So
What are you, paranoid?
yeah, I'm just paranoid.
I'm pretty sure most cars auto lock nowadays.
Yeah.
When you get to a certain speed.
The whole story is a little bit weird, but yeah, I mean, anyway, good guy, uninjured, bad guy, dead.
Bad guy dead.
Good
Good
job.
moment.
Yep.
Remove that DNA from the gene pool.
Well, he's probably got. Never mind. I'm not going to say anything horrible.
He's already got a bunch. Yeah.
That's what he
Right.
did.
Yeah.
Next story is not gun related. I'm just happy about it. Mike Bloomberg suspends presidential campaign after Super Tuesday flop. He won in American Samoa, like I think 170.
American Samoa.
Yeah, he got it in American Samoa. That's it.
That's right.
He dropped
Oh,
that.
little Mike.
He said he's going to support Joe Biden, and I say spend another $500,000 on Biden. Let's.
He's an imbecile.
He is. Yeah.
I don't believe that Bloomberg ever had any illusions that he was going to be the president. This was a jockeying for power move.
He needed more money to pay his employees.
He was looking for at his stage in the game. He's just looking for power.
Yeah.
He wants to be a power broker in American politics. That's what he wants to be.
Yeah.
And so now by throwing his weight behind Biden, he thinks he can, get himself some power.
And let's not forget how much power he wields with the media that he and his conglomerates own. I mean, so much of the mainstream media.
Oh yeah, he's part of the problem.
Yeah, he's a huge part of the problem, if not one of the biggest. California UPS worker reportedly planned a mass shooting, was arrested with over 20,000 rounds of ammo and a weapons cache. So this guy apparently had reported at work that he was going to shoot up the place, and this is UPS, not USPS. And so they decided that they were going to come catch him, and he took them on a high-speed chase while he was drunk. And anyway, what they found was 20,000 rounds of ammo, high-capacity magazines, or as we call them, standard capacity magazines, 5 tactical rifles, a shotgun, 3 handguns, body armor, and tactical backpacks with ammunition. So he
tactical backpacks. Does it really say that?
It really does. So if you click through to the Yahoo article, it says tactical backpacks with ammunition, and they were staged at the apartment's front door.
Tactical backpacks.
Yeah, it's so silly. But the 20,000 rounds of ammunition, I mean, I would wager that every single person on the show right now has more than that.
Well, this is called the Wyoming Starter Kit. But somebody opined that the pictures are all these things in the shipping containers and the shipping boxes, that this guy was lifting them from deliveries. That he basically stole them from deliveries, which isn't hard to believe. But when I saw this, it said he texted a threat to his what?
Yeah.
They didn't say criminals are smart.
Yeah, like what mass murderer is like, just so you know, I'm coming to kill everyone in the building just tomorrow. You
guys have seen that
angry emoji poop face.
Yeah, you guys have seen that Steve Buscemi meme where his eyes are going in 2 different directions, and he says looks fine with to me. That's what this guy,
good to me.
Yeah, that's what this guy looks like too. So maybe that's why he texted. He just texted the wrong number or something.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to. You look out. Okay. All right. So,
yeah, I don't know. Like the system worked exactly how it was. he said a dumb thing. He said that he was going to hurt people and kill people. He had the stuff to do it. The people that he told that were going to do it, they reported it to the authorities. The authorities tried to make contact with the guy. The guy led him on a high-speed chase. They arrested the guy. They found the stuff. Nothing bad happened. Isn't that how things are kind of supposed to go?
Yeah. Well, I really despise how our modern era, they do the whole like lay everything out on the table thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah.
I can't remember which one it was, but somebody they did the whole look what we sees, and they laid that stuff out on the table, and there was like 4 BB guns
And a musket.
Yeah, and a musket, and I'm like, really? Oh, I know. There was one where there was 8. It was in New York. 8 police officers standing by a table, and it was an Ivor Johnson revolver that had no hammer.
Yes.
It had no hammer. And somebody's like, what was he going to do? Like bludgeon people to death with that thing? And they're like, this weapon of mass destruction is off the streets thanks to these 8 fine officers here. And like, wow. Wow. Man, you're my hero.
You guys are killing it.
You're my hero. Like, I don't know what he planned on doing with that thing. It's like you could take wood and carve it into the shape of a gun in New York, and they'd be like, we confiscated this stick, the shape of a gun, and saved thousands.
They put it in their tactical backpacks.
Yeah, in the tactical backpacks.
It was designed to make it through metal detectors.
Exactly.
Because it's wood.
This next story pisses me off, to put bluntly. San Francisco DA will no longer pursue additional charges that result from lawful traffic stops. So this DA apparently he's got it out for the cops. He's very anti-police, and he in his
Which
press
makes
release,
sense because you're a DA.
well, yeah. In his press release, he says, "Today we take action. We send a message that is loud and clear to the police department and to communities of color. We will no longer participate in, condone, tolerate, or amplify racist police tactics." So he will no longer charge suspects for contraband found by police during stop and frisk searches conducted during the course of another interaction. So if they find illegal guns, illegal drugs, anything in a vehicle that was stopped for a traffic violation or whatever, they're gonna drop everything.
Wow. Why would you? Wow.
Here's the thing. You want to know what the thing is?
I would like to know the thing.
The thing is, California, this is all 100% your fault. This came about because 25 years ago, you decided you were comfortable and the weather was nice, and you could put up with things. Well, I know it's not good, but I know it's not good, but it's like, no. You know who's doing it right? Virginia. The people in Virginia. People in Virginia are going to the town hall meetings. They just put the smackdown on little Mikey in Virginia. That's probably one of the reasons that he cried and took his ball and went home, is because the actual citizens of Virginia just put the smackdown on that turd. The people in Virginia are doing now is what the people in California should have been doing 20 years ago, and they wouldn't be in this position where the government loves criminals more than they are more worried about coddling criminals than they are about the people. Whether you're an illegal invader, whether you're crapping on the streets, shooting up so you can shoot up heroin on a BART platform, and that's your personal choice. You can take a dump on a BART platform, and that's your personal choice. But if they catch you eating a sandwich, you're going to be fined. Yes, that is the state that you made and created with your apathy. Sorry.
It makes me mad. The police union clearly and local law enforcement pretty furious about the whole thing. I don't know where this ends. Jared, what are your thoughts here, man?
I think it's interesting that we're trying to punish law-abiding gun owners while letting felons who have these things, these other charges at a traffic stop, just letting them go. It's
well, that's how police work. That's how it works. I figured out,
pull them over for a blinker, and
I realized I don't know, a couple years into my police career that it was pointless to pull over minivans. You know what I mean? It was pointless. And if it was, but I don't know how many DUIs, driving under suspensions, warrants, people with warrants on them, driving down the street with only one headlight, you know, because no brake lights, speeding or whatever. Like if you got warrants, fix your car.
Yeah.
Fix your car, man. Make sure you have two headlights. I mean, probably I would say 75% of the DUIs that I got as a cop were people just doing dumb stuff like broken headlights, no taillights, you know, and wasn't wild, crazy stuff like driving up over the embankment or whatever. It was just like dumb stuff. And that's how, you know, people with warrants pull somebody over, they only have one headlight. And my plan is, hey, man, you know, go home and fix that. You know, did you know? Or
Yeah.
Here's were you a cop, Sean?
No.
Oh, okay. But this is one of my favorite ones. Car manufacturers, they link the fuses deliberately. Most people don't know this, but the fuses in your cars are set up very deliberately. For instance, if your dash lights are out, that means your taillights are out, right? Because they're on the same fuse. So that's your clue. You're like, I have no dash lights. I probably don't have any taillights either. So if somebody had no taillights, like they're driving down the road in the middle of the dark, you know, and their headlights are working, but they got no taillights, I'd pull them over. I walk up, I'd say, your dash lights out? And they would look at me like, oh, are you a wizard? Are you a wizard?
Yes.
How did you know?
Absolutely.
You could see inside of my car and know that my dash lights are on? And I'm like, you got no taillights. Really? Yeah, because the fuse I said, but you have hazard lights because your hazards are on a different fuse.
It's like they were smart.
So put your hazards on, Johnny, and drive home. And tomorrow morning, get your fuses fixed. You know?
But then you're like, oh wait, never mind. You have a warrant.
Yeah, and then like, as you need to see your driver's license. Oh, do you know the judge wants to see you? You've been waiting. That's a good one though. You said, did you know the judge wants to see you? What, he does? Yeah, there's a piece of paper that says to bring you to jail and to make you stay there until Monday morning when you can talk to the judge because he wants to see you. He's been looking for you. Been wanting to talk to you. One of my favorite ones. Can I tell the favorite one? So I had to go. I was working on something else, and I'm sitting there. I'm parked, and I'm doing something. And this woman comes over to the cruiser, and of course I'm like, okay, citizen, what do you need? Put the window down. She's like, hey, I wasn't home yesterday, but my mom said that the sheriff's deputy came to the house, or my neighbor or whatever, but they were knocking on the door and then they left. And do you know why? I'm like, no, I don't. But hang on. So I get out, I grab my cell phone. And I'm like, hey, do you know what? Were you guys at Susie Smith's house yesterday? And they're like, yeah. Why? I said, because she's standing right here next to the car. Oh, we got a warrant for her. Will you grab her? I'm like, okay. So I got out of the car and I was like, hey, Susie. Yeah, I figured out why they were there. Why? Turn around, put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest.
This gives me no pleasure, except it does.
Yeah. So, and those are easy too. Those are super easy arrests. You just like sign, you go there, sign one piece of paper, and you're like, peace out.
Yep.
And they're like, thanks, bro. And you're like, no problem. See you later.
Guys, North Carolina Supreme Court rules flashbangs are weapons of mass destruction. I don't know if you read this. So I'm definitely the kind of guy who thinks that you should be able to buy RPGs at Walmart with no background check.
No, absolutely.
So there was a former Marine that got pulled over. He was driving with his.
He was active duty.
Let's see. Oh yeah, active duty. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's how I got him.
Driving with his emergency lights on. Said that he was pursuing another car that was also speeding. When they pulled him over, they found, I don't know, body armor, suppressors, ammunition, 3 flashbang grenades. He was later convicted for impersonating a law enforcement officer in possession of the grenades as weapons of mass destruction. So this eventually went to the Supreme Court of North Carolina, and they reversed an appeals court finding that flashbang grenades found in the man's car after the traffic stop were not devices capable of causing mass death and destruction. But they say that any grenade, because the language says, let's see, any explosive or incendiary bomb or grenade in the law counts as a weapon of mass death and destruction. So anyway, he was convicted, and it's gone to the Supreme Court. And man, I don't know.
This is all right. This is this is cray. I just shared this today with our Liberty Mastermind people. I'm like, okay, this guy obviously has a screw loose. All right, he probably has a screw loose.
I just wanted to see if I could lob a flashbang into that car that was moving.
He's got his own like dashboard thing. Like, all right, guy. But you notice that he wasn't charged with any other stuff because all the other stuff that he possessed lawfully.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, we need to jack this guy up, so we're going to get him for the flashbangs. Now, here's the crazy thing. This guy must not have had a very good attorney, because if it was this attorney, I'd say, if the state is going to argue that a flashbang is a weapon of mass destruction capable of death and I want to know how many people have died from flashbangs. Go.
Probably less than have died from tasers and pepper spray.
Yeah, go. I and so by this definition, literally, they're like, well, because it says the word grenade. So on the 4th of July, if you go into the highway store in Tennessee and buy stuff, you're buying weapons of mass destruction. If anything that says bomb. So if I buy smoke bombs, it is now a weapon of mass destruction. Really? Come on.
I know this is
the life you want to live.
This is what you want to be doing.
This is when Jesus comes back. This is how you want to be behaving. It's like, is this really how you want to live your life?
It was crazy to me. So the guy, he gets convicted. The appeals court basically overturns that for the grenades, and then the Supreme Court brings it back. It was just crazy to me.
So here's the question. Flashbangs are used by law enforcement agencies.
Yes, sir.
So what they're saying in North Carolina is that a law enforcement agency is allowed to own, possess, and use weapons of mass destruction.
Mm-hmm.
In quotes. That's in quotes. So if I had a law practice, let's just say I went to Harvard Law or Stanford Law like Ace Ventura did, and I've got a client who's been accused of distributing unlawful pharmaceuticals, and in the process of taking my client into custody, the local popo flipped flashbangs through the window. I would just, dude, you go to court and say that the local popo used weapons of mass destruction. You're like, no, they didn't. Yes, they did. According to this Supreme Court ruling, a flashbang is a weapon of mass destruction capable of killing. Was my client in a position where he should have been killed? Yes or no?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, then you just violated the law because you just used deadly force. What they're saying, what the Supreme Court of North Carolina just said, was the use of flashbangs is deadly force. But as we all of us here in real world know, the whole reason they use flashbangs is because they're not deadly force. If it called for deadly force, you just throw in frags.
Yes. What about tear gas canisters? I mean,
yes, the same. They're saying the same thing. They're saying the use mechanism they're grenades
because they explode.
So if you gas a suspect with tear gas, according to the Supreme Court of North Carolina, you just exercise deadly force. And if you didn't meet the big three, AOJ, if AOJ weren't met, they're going to have to throw those out.
Yep.
Brothers and sisters, you're like, oh, don't give them ideas, Paul. No, fornicate yourself.
Yeah.
You got to think beyond your freaking ding dong when you come up with stuff like this. What you just said to every tort lawyer in America is that if a police officer uses a flashbang or a tear gas grenade in order to take your client into custody, they used excessive, unlawful force against them.
Absolutely.
And let the good times roll. Go.
Yep.
Go.
Totally agree.
That's that was what I was going to bring up, the police being okay to have these things and use them, but a dude, us as mere peasants cannot have these things.
You can't have smoke.
Weapons
You're
of
not allowed
mass
to have
destruction.
smoke.
Maybe it massively destroys your
feelings.
eyesight
I don't know.
and hearing.
I mean, yeah, because most places civilians are allowed to have flashbangs, right? Like, I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to say what
depending on what form they take.
Yeah.
If it's there to scare wildlife, but you can't have bird bombs in 20 gauge anymore, because while we were all sleeping and not paying attention, Comrade Barry ordered the ATF to reclassify 12 gauge bird bombs as destructive devices. Up until 2012, you could buy them. You could go online, buy them, have them shipped to your house with a UPS truck, except that California guy probably would have stolen
because all those kids that were killed with them.
Yeah, it's like mass. And literally the ATF just, they woke up one morning. They're like, you know what? Let's just reclassify those. And then no one said, but they've been legal for 50 years. Yeah, I know that, but we just, there you go. Now they're illegal, and you have to pay. You have to have a explosive devices license to own them now. Just like that.
Wow.
That's the representative republic of the United States of America that we live in.
Speaking of that, California County wants a dedicated gun confiscation team. Santa Clara County in California wants to form this. The special county gun team, they will enforce gun confiscation for over 4,600 confiscation orders issued every year. They want to make them permanent positions. They've asked for $5.3 million, I believe I read earlier. And this is basically people who become prohibited, or apparently in this registry, there's a lot of people that are just put there accidentally.
Your permission slip expired.
Exactly. Your permission slip expired. So they don't actually tell the people and say, hey, you're now prohibited. Excuse me, you're now prohibited. You should bring those guns in. They don't tell them purposely because they don't want them to hide the guns. So what they do is they have these jackbooted thugs show up at their houses, confiscate their property, and incarcerate them because of that. What do you guys think about that?
I think that who's paying the bill for that? I know it's coming from the taxpayers. So what's literally happening is they're using their own money to.
They're using your money to
oppress yourself.
Yeah. Yes.
So if you're going to allow it to happen, then I guess you're okay with it. But if you're not okay with it, don't allow it to happen.
Isn't California operating on a deficit budget?
Supposedly.
Last I heard that they were in a hardcore
like
fiscal deficit.
60% were
because they want to give free stuff to everybody who comes from, well, anywhere but America.
Yeah. I don't know. This is interesting. I'm like, I don't know how that's going to go for you guys.
Well, what's 5.3 million when it's the safety of the children?
Yeah.
The county supervisor is pressing for the use of 427,247 and hiring a dedicated supervisor and prosecutor. So for two people, that's $427,247.
That's California, baby. Well, if you're going to be a senior Stasi officer, and for people who don't know what that is, Google it. If you're going to oppress your fellow citizens, you got to get paid.
Yeah. I mean,
what's more important, malum inse or malum prohibitum?
This is an interesting one compared with another that talks. I'm going to go way down to the bottom of I'm offended because I think it's appropriate here. News report claims Oath Keepers is recruiting police officers to a rebellion. This comes to us from the Star Telegram. And the headline is a paranoid militia infiltrating Texas police is bent on rebellion, and talking about how Oath Keepers, not a terrorist organization by any stretch of the imagination, as far as I'm aware or concerned, trying to recruit officers to be part of the Oath Keepers, keep the oaths keep the oaths that they took. What do you guys think about that?
That the Oath Keeper, I know some people that are in the Oath Keepers organization, and or I guess it's an organization, and they're all really good dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like for instance, what's the terrorist organization that was Antifa? They were labeled as a terrorist organization, but news news agencies like probably this one right here would think that they're okay. So how is it that these, I almost guarantee you the author of this article doesn't know anybody personally that's on the Oath Keeper, whatever they call it, squad or whatever. But yeah, it's just interesting. This is all, I read this earlier and it was rough to read.
Well, here's the truth of the matter is, if you're not willing to keep your oath, they're pointless.
The oath is pointless.
Yeah, the oath is pointless. So do these people want to eliminate the oath of office? Do they think it's wrong and it's bad? Because it's pretty straightforward. I state your name. Hereby swear to support and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and that of the state of Ohio, yada, yada. Or I've taken multiple oaths. I did it twice, 3 times when I was in the Marine Corps. And I did it when I was a police officer. Police officers, they pull you out, and the mayor and the chief and the council, and you're like, I solemnly swear to support the. So if you think that's a bad thing, if you think citizens recruiting law enforcement officers or asking them to keep their oaths is a bad thing, you're a dangerous individual. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure what is dangerous about, well, they want this guy to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
What?
Yeah.
Well, it says down here, were you done with that?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
It says, unlike other gun libertarians, the Oath Keepers promote paranoid fears of a new world order, conspiracy, and spread veiled anti-Semitism in just trusting elites. And they named Alex Jones as one of the elites. You know who's anti-Semitic?
He's their whipping boy.
Do you know who is anti-Semitic?
The whole Democrat Party.
Socialists.
Yeah. Every Oath Keeper I've ever met was good people. Like I've never seen one bad thing, whether you want to join an organization or not. Like I don't understand how obeying the oaths that these people are taking.
Yeah, that's kind of important.
It is.
And the reason what people don't understand is, oh, that's archaic. Why would you want people to, swear that? Well, because we understood it during the founding that the law, the rule of law is more important than the rule of people. Because there's always going to be somebody different in the chair. Every 4 years or 8 years or whatever, there's going to be a new person sitting in the big chair. And if every time a new person gets in the chair, we're just going to change the law, well, this sheriff says blah, 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 blah. So we have to do that now. You're like, no, that's not really the way it is. The law stays the same, regardless of who's sitting in the Capitol building or, on the throne. The law is the same. And we don't change the law, and we don't change how we apply the law and enforce it and support it just because CNN has convinced everyone that AR-15s are the worst thing in the world. That's not how it works. Mm-hmm. And you can't have, and that's why the United States of America as a representative republic is so different. Because if you follow European politics, every time, like in England or in Germany or, every time that party wins the election, everything changes. Everything changes. They're like, okay, well, this party's in charge now, so they're going to make all these new rules. Yeah. And then we get rid of them, and then they get rid of them, and the other party gets in, and the other party changes all the rules. And so the people are just, they're at the surviving, existing at the whims of whoever happens to be sitting on the throne at that moment in time. That's why we're different.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the United States of America is different, because our founders understood that was the way the world basically worked, was that whoever got on the throne, like, well, I hope it's a good one, because if it's not, we're screwed. If we get an inbred king with that weird disease, we're going to be screwed for a long, when Caligula becomes the emperor, we're going to be screwed. So, that's why the Constitution is more important than whoever happens to be a politician at the time.
Yeah. Well said. Let's keep going down this track. This one I talked about on another show recently. It really has me bent out of shape. 2 10-year-old Colorado boys charged with felony for playing with toy guns. So 2 kids are hanging out, I believe Nerf guns, something like that. Obviously fake guns. They're sitting in the front yard, car driving by. They point the guns at the car. I literally know that I've done this 1,000 times as a kid, a teenager, young adult.
I'm not hungry.
Oh.
I'm having one more bite. No.
Autoplay video. Sorry about that. I know I've done it. So the guy in the car, his snowflake started to melt. So he gets out and he goes and confronts them at the door. Says he's going to call police. Calls police. Police show up, and these are obviously fake guns, orange tips and everything. Police show up. They turn off their body cams, go confer with each other, come back and say, "I'm sorry, but we're going to have to arrest you." So they take 10-year-olds into custody, book them, and now they've gone through the legal system. Turns out they're going to have to do diversion and community service and all kinds of other stuff. 216 days of fighting this. The felony was finally expunged. I'm so angry at the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, Paul. If I'm wrong,
no, you're absolutely right. This is some serious horse crap.
Yeah.
As somebody who wore the uniform and has been there and done that, this literally, people are like, "How come you're bashing cops, Paul?" I'm like, I was one, man. Don't go there with me. You can talk to other people about that crap, but don't go there with me. This is what happens when you have officers on the street that have no ability to deal with the situation as it is. What are they gaining from this?
No idea.
Literally, I mean,
They're
are they
scaring-
getting these 10-year-olds off the street because they're like heavy duty narcotics traffickers, and they're like, "We've been looking for Timmy and we finally got him. You're going down, Timmy." What they just did is they just got 2 10-year-olds and their families who are going to hate the police for probably the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And they're in all right. So Johnny Snowflake was scared. You go talk to kids. You're like, "Hey, were you doing this? Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that anymore.
Exactly. I'm like, don't do that.
Don't do that anymore." Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving on. End of story.
Yeah, but you don't understand. You have to make them pay for.
Yeah.
My feelings are
you
hurt,
gotta make them pay.
and I was scared, and now these kids need to be scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. And then you take the guy over, and I mean, dude, I couldn't be a cop anymore. I'm not one. I haven't been one for a while, and I couldn't be. You couldn't pay me to go back, because if some freako snowflake, it's like the dispatcher sending people because a guy, to bust a dude walking down the street with the umbrella and stuff, like closing down the schools and the malls because a guy was seen, and it turns out he had an umbrella, and I'm like, you're what?
Yeah.
This is what we're doing now. We're afraid of people with umbrellas. Now, and a bigger thing is, how do you get people like this? How do you get a society full of people that are so afraid of their own shadow that they're calling 911 on 10-year-olds with Nerf guns?
I don't know. And I don't. Maybe they weren't Nerf guns. It said they had orange tips, so maybe they were like airsoft or something, like the one I've got sitting on the desk right in front of me. But still, so I am very pro police. I have a lot of friends that are cops, ex-cops, former cops. Like, I understand that they have one of the worst possible jobs that you can imagine, but I mean, rewarding in a lot of ways as well. But you're dealing with literally the absolute scum of the universe almost on a daily basis. It's very probably infrequent that you're dealing with like the best people that there are. And I understand how they become jaded and pessimistic, and I understand all those things, and I feel for them. And probably for the most part, the El Paso County Sheriff's Office is filled with wonderful people. I had a 14-hour experience with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office that almost crushed my entire belief in police officers and law enforcement in this country. It was the worst 14 hours of my entire life for a speeding ticket. And every individual that I came in contact with was absolutely not even a human being. And so just to see this story and to have my personal life experience with it, and granted, it was a speeding ticket. It was my fault. I take full responsibility. I took care of everything. It's good. But that 14 hours, it set me on a path that I see. Like, there's no critical thinking going on in this situation, just like there was no critical thinking going on in my situation.
People wonder, they're like, how do you get down a path where you're loading people up on boxcars? You're like, oh, that's extreme, Paul. What you're saying is crazy extremist, and that'll never happen. No,
It doesn't
you can't
happen
say
quickly, though.
it'll never happen when it already has happened. Anything that has already happened on planet Earth can happen again. All right, read Ecclesiastes. Solomon will tell you. So anything that can happen or has happened can happen again if you're not vigilant. And what we've allowed is we've allowed this zero tolerance bull crap, and zero tolerance is fascism.
Well, it takes
100%.
It takes away the critical thinking element.
Yeah.
So the people that want to use critical thinking in their job, they leave, and then you're stuck with people that don't even care, either don't want to use critical thinking, they don't want to critically think,
thinking critically,
or that don't know how and don't have that skill in the first place.
Yeah, and part of the problem is and I've seen this for 2 decades now, is police hiring that doesn't focus on the best and brightest, but instead focuses on filling quotas. When we started filling quotas, we basically set American law enforcement up for failure.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, cops shouldn't have to operate on the same thing that telemarketers do.
Yeah, it's terrible. And well, when I mean filling quotas, I mean hiring quotas.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like, well, it doesn't matter that these 12. Like, we're not going to pick the most intelligent, best trained. We're going to go and figure out what their personal ethnic background is, and we're going to hire those people. You're like, yeah, but these 3 guys over here scored the highest in the police academy, and they have the best scores. Yeah, but their skin doesn't quite have enough melanin in it, and they all 3 have penises, so we can't hire them this week. We have to hire vaginas. And well, that was a little Randy Savage.
Some people with penises are vaginas.
Yeah, well, so that's been going on in the United States for a long time, and quite frankly, people who are self-motivated, self-starters, they're like, I don't need this Mickey Mouse crap. I can go somewhere else and make more money. And what you end up with is over time, talk to any career cop. A lot of career cops are like, as soon as I can, the second I can get my retirement, I'm gone.
Yeah.
I don't have to leave, but the second I get it, I'm gone. Or they get a better job somewhere else and they're like, peace out. I'm out of here. Somebody hires them as an administrator somewhere, or they take a job as like the head of security for, IBM or whatever, and they're gone. And unfortunately, what you end up with, and I've seen this, I've worked for several police departments. You got the people that, what I call pensioners. They're going to do as little as possible, as often as possible, so they can keep getting paid.
Don't rock the boat.
Yeah, they're not going to rock the boat, and they're not going to question anything. If the sergeant says go to that guy's house and arrest him for eating Skittles, after midnight, they're like, okay, rock on. I'm going to go do that. If the sheriff says that guy's permission slip expired to own a gun, go arrest him. And if he resists, kill him. Okay, and we're on our way. You wonder why people show up. You wonder, you're like, oh, people are like, they'll never enforce red flag because it violates like 7 amendments. And you're like, it's already being done. It's being done right now. And it's Michael Bloomberg is not showing up at people's houses. Joe Biden isn't showing up at people's houses. So who's the one showing up?
If Mike showed up, you wouldn't be able to see him through your peephole. Nobody was there.
Mini Mike. No, yeah, it's absolutely right. And these officers should just be damned ashamed of themselves, or these deputies. Like, I can't even tell you the distaste that I have for that organization right now. They say at the end, they released a statement when they were asked about it. And if anyone is dissatisfied with the actions of any employee of the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, they have administrative avenues available to them. We encourage citizens to take advantage of those avenues.
We have an avenue in the United States of America. It's called the Second Amendment and the First Amendment. I don't know what to say. Well, I can tell you, I know where this comes from. This comes from the top. Sheriff, you need to get rid of that sheriff. End of story. Boom, gone.
He's actually
thrown that out. The sheriff thrown that out, and they should have suspended or gotten rid of this cop. But they didn't. That tells me the sheriff is wrong.
Yeah, it must be. I mean, he's a pretty pro 2A guy. But yeah, this makes me mad. And my experience in their system with their deputies was just as bad and as stupid as this one was. So yeah, anyway, maybe having them join Oath Keepers is not a bad idea.
Well, you have to want to keep your oath before you join Oath Keepers.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what their oath was, but I don't think it was what we think it was.
Yeah.
Guys, that's our time for tonight. I really appreciate yeah, it did. Hour goes by super fast, especially when we're talking about like important stuff like this. I really appreciate you guys. Tell everyone like what you guys have been up to. I saw Paul in passing at SHOT Show.
Oh yeah, dude. I didn't get to go to SHOT this year because I didn't have a baby. My wife had a baby, but my firstborn child was delivered on January 25th. So it was right smack dab at the end of SHOT Show. And if I would have left, she would have came on like the 22nd or something, you know?
Oh yeah.
And so I was here, and Dad and Zach flew the flag for Student of the Gun at SHOT Show. And there's a ton of stuff that we've got coming this year. We've got, we actually just released 2 live training classes. They're currently only available to our grad program members. But if they're not filled by grad program members, then they'll be released to the public next week. We've got the Legion of Michael training, which is actually, we do an online portion of that because there are security and like it's a church security course.
Oh,
there are things that you can deliver on the internet information wise that you can actually digest and learn from. So we do that. We deliver that on the internet, and then we'll have, once we get a pretty decent sized graduate group for the online training, then we're going to do live training with that as well. So Legion of Michael's new, the live training, we're doing a precision rifle class.
Oh, nice.
They're kind of close to you guys. We'll be in Saratoga, Wyoming. So
awesome, man.
Yeah, it's fun stuff, man. And then we've got the TV show. We're doing those Vietnam segments, the Saigon Report. Those are pretty cool. And then we've got the podcast as well.
All of it available at
studentofthegun.com.
That's awesome. So let's see. I recall seeing Paul on the escalators. I think he was going either down and I was going up, or one of the opposite ways. And then at the Brownells party, he was holding court on one side of the room, and the only couches I could find were on the other side of the room. So like, we waved in passing.
Yeah. Well, we're here now, right?
Yes, you're here now. I appreciate it. So Student of the Gun, go check those guys out. I always appreciate you guys very much, and your insights, and honestly, just your voices out there. I really, truly love it and appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show, you can support the Patriot Patch Company. It's patriotpatch.co, or you can support Second Call Defense, or utilize Second Call Defense. Firearmsradio.tv/SCD. It's self-defense insurance. If you use your firearm in self-defense, they try to make sure that you're not going to end up spending the rest of your life in jail because you say something wrong, or civil court or criminal court or anything like that. Go check them out. This Week in Guns is produced by Kenny Ortega and Ben Allreed, and is a production of the Firearms Radio Network. And guys, we will talk to all of you next week.